The end of summer is here, which means only one thing: the return of the English Premier League. It's the most prestigious and competitive league in football, except for the fact that one team has won 5 of the last 6 titles. Yeah, basically, Man City has turned the Prem into a farmers' league over the past few years. But is it time for another team to rise up and dethrone the champs? Probably not, but let's talk about it. So, like we said, Manchester City, kind of a dynasty in the Prem. I mean, they won the treble last year. They've always won pretty much every domestic trophy, but finally capturing that Champions League trophy kind of cements them as one of the best teams ever. So, are they going to be able to continue their success? We'll see.
Yeah, they lost Ilkay Gundogan and Mahrez. Ilkay went to Barcelona, and Mahrez is going to Saudi Arabia. But they did sign a new midfielder, Kovacic, from Chelsea. We'll see how he is. How do you think they're going to do with the new losses and new signing?
Well, I think Gundogan is a pretty big loss. I mean, he was their captain. I mean, he constantly clutched up for them. I mean, even last year. But I don't know. They didn't. Kovacic is a decent player, but it's definitely a downgrade of a Gundogan, and Mahrez is pretty solid as well. So, kind of a pretty bad offseason, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, they've tried to sign Joshua Guardiola from Leipzig, of course, just to cement their defense, but apparently Leipzig right now is not willing to sell Guardiola. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, if City can get him, that would be a pretty decent signing, but again, I don't know if it's really going to be a massive game changer for them. But, I mean, it is Man City. They're by far the best team in all of Europe last year, and they got Erling Haaland, broke the Prem record for goals, was on an absolute fiend. So, do you think he's going to win the back-to-back Golden Boot this year?
I think he will, to be honest. He's just insanely good. He's always there. Him and De Bruyne just have the chemistry, you know. He's always scoring goals every single game. I think he will still be the back-to-back Golden Boot winner.
I do think he's a bit of a tap-in merchant, but I guess that's okay. It's pretty good for the Golden Boot winner. So, is this another year for Manchester City to win the Prem again? I don't know. I mean, they are probably the favorites, but to me, this team did get a little bit worse, and they weren't super dominant in the Prem last year. I mean, Arsenal was winning it for most of the year. So, we'll see. I think it's a relatively not vulnerable, but I think some other teams have a chance here.
Alright, so now we're moving on to Tottenham. Is this team going to beat the mid-allegations? What do you think?
I mean, to me, Tottenham, they had those good years in like the mid-2010s to late 2010s, but this team is kind of the definition of mid over the last few years, and really their whole history.
Yeah, Harry Kane, what do you think about the situation with Harry Kane? I know he's trying to leave. Bayern is offering multiple deals for him. Real Madrid was in talks with him. What do you think about this Harry Kane situation?
Man, I love Harry Kane. I think he's one of the most underrated players, and I fear if he stays at Tottenham, he's never going to win that trophy, and he's never going to get the respect he deserves. So, honestly, Bayern, I might have to break him out myself, pull a little Argo situation or something, because it's a bit ridiculous that he's still at Tottenham at this point. I mean, he's just bigger than the club.
Yeah, Tottenham did make some signings, though. James Maddison, of course, from Leicester. They got a new manager. What do you think about this new manager?
Well, I think he's fine. I mean, Tottenham, it seems like constantly bring in new managers, so we'll see if this guy sticks around for a little bit. I do like the signing of James Maddison because I think that brings a lot of creativity in their midfield that they really haven't had since like the Christian Eriksen days. And they did bring back Kulusevski. How do you say that name? Signed him off loan for a permanent deal. He was pretty solid for them last year, so we'll see if that's a good signing for them.
Yeah. So they did also win the Lions Cup in Singapore. So Harry Kane has beaten the allegations of 0 trophies.
I mean, he did win that Audi Cup a few years ago.
True.
So
here we go. Talking about Richarlison here. He scored barely any goals last season. Mostly offside goals, but what do you think about Richarlison this season? How do you feel about it?
He did have that hat trick in the Lions Cup final, so, I mean, man. But to me, Richarlison, to me, this guy is one of my favorite players. Not because he's good or anything. He's just so entertaining. I mean, everybody knows him from that one goal he scored at the World Cup. It was a banger. And his ridiculous celebrations at Tottenham. But he was pretty trash for them last year. He's really going to have to step it up. But, I don't know. Maybe he'll be in for a bounce-back season. They're really going to need it.
Yeah, will they compete for a European trophy next season? What do you think? How do you think they'll finish?
I mean, they're not even in Europe, so I don't know. It's just a disaster at this club at this point.
Yeah, I personally think they're on rebuild right now. They will get European football at some point in the next couple of years, but I don't think it'll be next year.
I think at this point, you just need to let Kane and Son leave, use that money to restart the rebuild, because they ain't winning anything with this core group of players. Alright, so Manchester United actually had a pretty good season, all things considered, last year. I know they had that terrible start with the Ronaldo drama and all that, but I mean, they finished third. They won the Carabao Cup, made it to the FA Cup final, so pretty solid season from them.
Yeah, in preseason, we've been seeing them ball out, absolutely ball out. They beat Arsenal twice in the same game, of course. We know about Arsenal's re-signing Declan Rice. He got absolutely cooked by Kobe Manu. 18-year-old Manchester United midfielder. Absolutely cracked. He's been shining in preseason. What do you think about the new transfers, though, for Man United with Andre Onana?
Well, they replaced Diea with Onana, which I guess is an upgrade at this point. I know Man United fans hated De Gea, but I think he was okay for them. Onana he's pretty aggressive. I don't know. He might push up with the boys during the press or something. Might cost him a few goals this year, but I think he'll be pretty solid for them.
Yeah, we could definitely see him playing striker at some point when he's tired of the Anthony's antics. What do you think about the new Mason Mount signing? Big signing from him. Took him to number 7 spot. What do you think?
I think Mason Mount's a decent player. I don't think he's all too great, so I don't know if it's going to be a huge game changer for them. I think it's kind of funny how he went from Chelsea, took their number 7 now. Yeah, I don't know. Mason Mount, we'll see about it. They also signed knockoff Holland, Rasmus Højlund from Denmark. What the hell was this? I mean, they paid more for the knockoff Holland than they did for the real one. I mean, no offense to the kid, but it's just a little weird of a signing, I think.
Yeah, I think Ten Hag just saw Scandinavian man, tall blonde Scandinavian man, decided he's probably the next Holland.
I hope this guy proves us wrong. It makes us look really stupid, but I don't know what this is.
Yeah, I think he'll be okay, but he won't have like a breakout season or anything. But what do you think about Marcus Rashford?
Well, Marcus Rashford had a great season last year. I mean, coming off the World Cup, there was a couple months there where he was legitimately one of the best players in the world. Kind of faded a little bit, but I think Marcus Rashford's a serious player. I think he's one of the best English players, and I think he could be a low-key Golden Boot contender this year.
Alright, so let's move on to Liverpool now. Do you think their midfield rebuild with McAllister and Szoboszlai is going to make a difference for them?
Well, McAllister was one of the FIFA World Cup superstars last year with Argentina. I mean, he was balling during the World Cup, and he was one of the best midfielders in the Prem last year, so I think that's a pretty good signing, especially for how cheap they got him. And then, Dominique, I think he'll be pretty good for them. I mean, I don't really know too much about him. I didn't really watch him at Leipzig that much, but from what I've heard, he's a baller, and he kind of just has that Liverpool aura where he's just pretty majestic looking, to be honest. So I think he'll fit right in.
Alright, speaking of majestic, man, we're losing Milner, the absolute Chad. What do you think about him, man?
I mean, he was the lactate king. He was my boy. It sucks, but we knew this day was coming. So, I wish him the best at Brighton. And, losing Firmino, Henderson, and Fabinho as well, all to Saudi, kind of sucks because these were pretty core guys with the Champions League and the Premier League winning teams with Liverpool, but it's kind of the end of an era. They were kind of a little washed at this point, so it's not too big of a loss, I think.
Yeah. Let's move on to Darwin Núñez. I personally think that he will have a decent season this year. And everyone last year was comparing him to Holland, but he didn't perform as well as we thought he would. But I think he'll have a decent season this year. He'll be pretty good.
Yeah,
what do you think?
The Holland versus Nunez argument kind of died like 2 weeks into the season, unfortunately. But I think Darwin Nunez, he kind of got battered last year because he missed a couple sitters and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But he had a solid year, and I actually think he's a pretty big breakout candidate for them. Another guy that kind of struggled at times last year was Trent. I mean, he's pretty appalling on defense. I don't know if, you know, that's not really a hot take at this point, but I think, you know, they kind of shifted him into a new role as an inverted fullback towards the end of the year, which he kind of thrived in. I'm a little bit wondering if he's just switched to midfield at this point. Maybe if Liverpool can go out and get another fullback, maybe that will just be the best option for the whole team. But I don't know. I trust in Jurgen Klopp. He hasn't done anything to like lose my trust at this point. I love the guy, so you know we'll see how this goes.
What do you think about Trent's new haircut? Is it just like the 2019 Champions League season?
I mean, he did get that haircut to go back to the 2019 season, and I mean, speaking of, you know, going back to the roots, Henderson came in absolutely jacked out of his mind just to leave to Saudi Arabia, which I think was ridiculous. I feel bad for the guy. He wasn't going to get any playing time with Liverpool. I don't blame him for leaving, but, you know, damn. I guess we're going to need a new captain, probably Virgil van Dijk. So, I don't know. It's kind of a new era for Liverpool, but I think it could be pretty promising. All right, so the kind of surprise team of last year was Newcastle. They finished 4th, got that Champions League spot. And I think the big question everyone's asking is, are they now one of the big teams in England? I know they had the Big 6, but is it time for a Big 7?
I feel like they'll just remain up in that like 5th or 6th spot up in the Prem. Yeah. I don't think they'll be that big of a team. Like they won't break out. Like considering they had a lot of draws last season. Their defense is solid. They have some good players like Isak, you know, incredible winger. But just in general, I think we'll see how it goes with them managing a Champions League games from now on too.
Yeah, that is true. We haven't really seen, you know, Newcastle in the Champions League. I think it's the first time in like 20-ish years or so. So it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that European schedule. They did bring in a couple of guys to, you know, help with the depth. They brought in Tonali from AC Milan, to his own disappointment.
Yeah, he is not happy about being there. Cue the clip of him being at the gym.
I mean, I've never seen a player just like so pissed to be. I mean, it's not even pissed. I think he's just depressed.
Yeah, he loved AC Milan. I don't know. He just does not want to be there. I feel for him. You know, like moving from Milan to Newcastle, man. It would be pretty depressing, but I don't know, man. I think he'll be fine. In general, he's a good player. He's a good signing for him, but I don't know how long it'll last.
They also brought in Harvey Barnes from Leicester. He's part of, you know, Leicester's big exodus of players following their relegation. I don't know how big of a difference he'll make, but pretty decent signing from Newcastle. So I don't know. We'll see if Newcastle can maintain what they did last year. The other teams, let's talk about Brighton. They finished 6th in the Prem. They got that Europa League spot. They've always kind of been building for the last few years. Kind of been like pulling wonderkins out of their asses, to be honest. But they brought in, you know, one of the best players of all time, at least in my personal opinion, James Milner.
Absolute Chad.
So, you know, they kind of, you know, I don't know how that's going to be with, you know, their current squad. He's kind of an older guy, but he might be like a solid veteran presence for them. They also brought in Joao Pedro, and they're looking to make a run in the Europa League. I think they could honestly make it pretty far. Potential Liverpool versus Brighton Europa League final. But yeah, I like what Brighton's doing. I think they'll have another solid season.
Yeah, they've got some pretty good players. They got Mitoma, of course. Yeah, I feel like they're gonna be fine with losing a couple of these players. But let's move on to Aston Villa. I'm really liking this team. They signed Moussa Diaby from Leverkusen, and they also signed Yuri Tielemans. They're playing in the Conference League. They're trying to build off a strong run from last year, of course. Unai Emery, of course, he was really good.
Yeah.
Aston Villa, pretty solid team last year. I think they'll continue their strong run.
I mean, Aston Villa, when they were under Steven Gerrard's management, they were like a strong relegation contender, to be honest. But Unai Emery came in, and this team was just cooking last year.
Yeah,
I mean, they finished seventh. They finished ahead of freaking Tottenham and Chelsea.
Yeah.
So
I feel like the Moussa Diaby signing is going to be huge for him. He's an insane player, dribbler. He can get behind the lines extremely well. I feel like Aston Villa is in for a great season.
yeah, I think they're a sleeper top 6 contender.
Yeah.
All right, so Brentford, they're kind of like the Oakland A's in a way of the Premier League, at least in terms of their like Moneyball approach. I mean, they've just been signing dudes for like super cheap, and they've kind of just somehow made that work. One of their big players, though, their biggest player, Ivan Toney, he got that ban for gambling, of course.
Yeah.
How do you think this is going to affect Brentford?
I feel like it's going to be huge. It's going to be huge for them because last year he scored about 33% of Brentford's goals, of course. And now that he's banned till January now, it's going to be tough for Brentford. I still think they'll finish maybe top 10, like bottom of the top 10, you know.
Yeah.
But Brentford is going to be rough. They do have Mbueno. He's a good midfielder, but I don't know, man. Just losing that striker, it's going to be tough for him.
Yeah, I mean, he was a huge part of their success, so I don't know if they're going to be able to maintain their form without him.
Yeah, let's move on to Nottingham Forest, one of my personal favorite teams. They got Anthony Elanga from Man United. They signed a small army's worth of players just to stay up. Okay, so can they stay out of relegation this year? What do you think?
Maybe. I mean, I like a lot of their players. They got some decent young players, but I don't know. Nottingham Forest, I mean, they pulled off some pretty big upsets. I mean, obviously everybody remembers the Arsenal game.
18% possession. That's wild.
So, I don't know, Forest. I didn't think they were going to stay up last year, and they proved me wrong. So, we'll see. But I don't think Nottingham Forest is really going to be doing much of anything this year.
I also think that losing Keylor Navas back to PSG it's going to be kind of big for him because he's an insane goalie. He made some pretty good race saves for him last year. But yeah, I still think that they'll barely make it out of relegation zone. They'll be a good team.
All right, so honestly, my favorite of the promoted teams last year was Fulham, just because of their American connection. You know, shout out Tim Ream and Anthony Robinson, but
of course,
you know, they're kind of in a little bit of a weird situation with Mitrovic. I mean, he doesn't really want to be there anymore. He's trying to go to Saudi, get that bag, but for the time being, it seems like he's kind of stuck at Fulham. What do you think of that situation?
Yeah, he said that he quote unquote, he said that he will never play for Fulham ever again. So, I don't know, man. I think they should just let him go. They did make some signings. Raul Jimenez, Mexican striker. I think it's going to be good. It's just a replacement for Mitrovic. And they also did sign Calvin Bassey, good defender from Ajax, but I think they'll be fine. They'll be maybe 11th or 12th place team.
Yeah.
Maybe 10.
I mean, Fulham, I think they finished 10th last year. That was a pretty big shock. I don't think they're going to do as good, but hopefully they can stay up. I really like Fulham.
Yeah, let's move on to Crystal Palace. So they lost a big player, huge player in the history of Crystal Palace, Wilfried Zaha. He's going to Turkey. What do you think about this?
I mean, Zaha, I always felt that he could have left Palace. I think he should have a few years ago. I think he kind of wasted his talents there because I know we said Tottenham was like the definition of mid, but Crystal Palace is literally the definition of a mid-table team. I mean, it seems like they're always finishing like 11th or 12th. Yeah. So I actually think Crystal Palace, hot take, I don't think they're going to finish 12th. I think they're going to be a lot worse than they usually are.
I can see that happening. That was
All right, so Everton, they finished 16th 2 years ago, 17th last year. So, you know, following the pattern, I guess this is the year they should be relegated, right?
I don't know. I feel like they definitely could get relegated, but I don't know. They were in hot relegation zone last year, but they somehow made it out. I don't know how. I could definitely see them getting relegated, but with these new promoted teams, I feel like they'll barely get out of it.
I mean, it would be hilarious to see Everton be playing in the championship with their like new, $1.5 billion stadium or whatever it was. But I don't know, Everton to me, I just don't see them falling to the championship, even with how bad their team is.
Let's move on to the promoted teams. We have Burnley, Sheffield, and Luton. Let's talk about Burnley. How do you think they're going to be?
I mean, Vincent Kompany, he was cooking with Burnley last year. I mean, they dominated everybody in the championship, finished solidly in first place. So I think they got a pretty good chance of staying up.
Yeah, and then we also have Sheffield United. What do you think about them?
I mean, they beat Wrexham in the FA Cup last year. I think that's what everybody remembers them for. I think they beat Tottenham as well.
Yeah, they did.
About it. So, I don't know. I mean, Sheffield, they're kind of always one of those teams that always, bounces back between the championship and the Prem. So, they're always a decent team to root for, I guess.
Let's move on to one of the most remarkable stories in football. Luton Town, of course. They've gone from Division 5 team to now the Premier League. What do you think about this team?
I mean, going from non-league to the Premier League in such a short amount of time is just remarkable for Luton Town. I know Wrexham is trying to do that, but Luton Town did it without all the hype that Wrexham gets. Yeah. I mean, shout out to Pele Rubak Mpanzu. I mean, he was there from when they were playing in non-league, and now he's playing in the Premier League with the same team. I think he's the only player to ever do that, so big ups to him.
Yeah.
But,
what do you think about that stadium?
Yeah.
I love that. I personally love it, man. I can't wait to see Harry Kane bombing some balls out into some legit yard.
Harry Kane missing another pen, breaking a window or something. I mean, that stadium, it's almost too ridiculous to even think that's going to be a Premier League stadium next year, but I don't know. I love it. We'll see if it's going to be a 1-year thing. Hopefully not. But
yeah, I'm in love with this team, but I don't know. They could definitely get relegated here.
I think they could be the worst team in Premier League history. I think that's definitely on the table.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to Chelsea Football Club. And they were kind of the story of the Prem last year, but for all the wrong reasons. I mean, they really just had a disaster class of a season on so many levels. I mean, it seemed like they just could not score a goal to save their lives. So, I mean, this led to, a complete rebuild of the squad, I guess.
Yeah. Personally, last year I was shitting on them a lot. I know everyone was, but yeah, they completely rebuilt their squad. They sold Conte, Pulisic, Mendy, Koulibaly, Caesar, Havertz, Mount, Kovacic. How many more? They have been also signing some players. They've got Nicholas Jackson and Kunku. They have been in rumors to signing Moises Caicedo from Brighton. I personally am really excited to see this new Chelsea team. They've been cooking in preseason. What do you think about their new manager with Pochettino?
I love Pochettino. I think he's a great manager. I mean, he did a lot of great things with Tottenham. Kind of turned him into, I know everybody makes fun of Tottenham, but they were one of the biggest teams in Europe during the mid to late 2010s. I mean, they made it to the Champions League final, finished in second in the Prem a couple times. So I think Pochettino definitely is the guy to turn this Chelsea team around.
Yeah, we've been seeing these preseason action with Chelsea. And Kunku and Jackson, they've both been absolutely balling. And Mudryk, we have Mudryk. He barely scored. I don't think he scored a single goal last year.
No, I don't think he did.
He scored. I think he scored his first couple of goals for him in preseason.
He just scored a banger against Brighton in that preseason game.
Yeah, I think Mudryk is in for a complete bounce back season, especially with this new attacking trio and Kunku, Jackson, and Mudryk. I feel like it'll be a really good attack. It's going to be exciting to watch.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about Chelsea last year is their defense was actually pretty good. It was one of the better defenses in the league, but they just could not score. So is Nkunku and Mudryk and Jackson going to be able to do that? we'll see, but it's really good. That's what's going to really determine their success this year.
Yeah. They need a couple better midfielders now.
Yes.
What do you think about the new Caicedo situation with Brighton?
Well, I think Brighton is kind of playing this pretty well because Chelsea really do need another midfielder. Enzo Fernandez, he's a baller.
He's really good.
But, you know, those other midfielders they got at Chelsea, they are just not it, man. I think if they got Caicedo, I don't know, but I think this team would be a serious contender, at least to get a European spot.
Yeah, this is going to be a really exciting team to watch in this season. Yeah, they could definitely be a top 5 team. We'll see.
I mean, they beat the relegation allegations last year, so it can't get much worse for Chelsea.
So let's move on to Arsenal, the league bottlers. What do you think? Can they finally win the league this year?
I mean, so they brought in some pretty solid signings. Brought in Declan Rice. I mean, they way overpaid for him, but I mean, Declan Rice is a baller. I've been saying for a lot of years he's one of the most underrated players, so I think that's a great signing for them. Brought in Kai Havertz from Chelsea. I mean, everybody knows what he did at the MLS skills competition. You know, we were both shitting on him a little bit for that, but he did score that banger.
Yeah, he did.
So, you know, give him props for that. I think I liked Havertz a few years ago. I think he has the potential to be really good. And then also bringing in Timber to solidify that defense. Really good offseason. Especially considering they only lost, really, Zaga, so they didn't really lose that much. So
yeah. They just completely replaced them with Rice, but
yeah,
I feel like Arsenal will still be a top 4 team, of course, but I don't know, man. The bottling allegations are crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Arsenal, everybody knows about the bottle job, but you know, they were winning the league for most of the year. This is no bad team at all.
Yeah.
And I think if any team was going to be able to overthrow Man City, I think this is the team you got to bet on.
Yeah, it'll come down to the games against Man City, of course.
Yes.
Those really crushed them. After their draw with Southampton, their form was horrendous. They played Manchester City, they got crushed. I don't know. They need to finish off the season strong.
I think the one thing though with Arsenal, they actually won the league this year. Arsenal Fan TV will never shut up about it for the rest of time. But I think, you know, one thing that's worth mentioning, their owner Stan Kroenke, who I hate because it's a piece of shit, but he has won a championship with the Rams, Avalanche, and the Nuggets over the last few years. So, is this the year for Arsenal to do that? I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. It's exciting. Alright, so we're coming down to the end of the video, so we're both going to be giving our predictions for the standings of the Premier League. So I'll go first. I have Manchester City winning the league, of course. I then have Manchester United finishing second. I think that they're a really strong team. I think they'll continue off that strong finish last season. Then I have Arsenal, Liverpool, and then Chelsea. I think Chelsea will finish in the top 5 spot. They're an interesting team now. Then I have Newcastle. Then we have Aston Villa. Brighton, Tottenham at 9th. I think Tottenham, even with Harry Kane, Harry Kane's going to have a good season, but I just don't think that Tottenham's going to be finishing in a European Cup finish. Then we have Brentford, Fulham, West Ham at 12, Burnley at 13. We got the new promoted team. Then we have Nottingham Forest at 14, Crystal Palace at 15. Interesting with Zaha. We'll see how that goes. Everton at 16. We have the Wolves at 17, Sheffield United at 18, Bournemouth at 19, and to finish it off, we have Luton Town, 20th place. I don't like it, but it might happen, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Alright, so saying that Man City's going to win the Prem, I know it's the boring take, but I'm a pretty boring person. I like being right, so I'm just going to have them in first. I think Arsenal is going to be second again. I think they probably are going to finish with more points than they did last year, but I don't know. Man City, to me, they're just too stacked. Until proven otherwise, I'm always going to pick Man City. I think Liverpool, bounce back season, get in the Champions League again. And then Man United, I got in 4th, getting that last Champions League spot. I think Newcastle will lose it, just because I think their schedule is going to be a little bit more brutal this year with that Champions League stuff. Chelsea, I have coming in 6th. I think, obviously they finished 12th last year, so that's a pretty big turnaround. And then Tottenham, if they keep Harry Kane, I'll put them in 7th. If they don't have Harry Kane, they're probably going to be like pretty mid, even more mid than they currently are. I think Villa, Brighton, Burnley, I think all 3 of those teams would be solid. And then, the teams I got going down, I got Luton Town in 20th, unfortunately. And then I got Bournemouth and I got Nottingham Forest going down as well. Nothing against those teams, but, 3 teams got to go down, and I think those 2 just don't really have as much quality as some of the other teams in the Prem. So I got Sheffield staying up, I guess, but sorry, Nottingham. I know they spent, the GDP of a small country, brought in like 1 million players, but they're going to have to release all those guys because they're going down this year.